Welcome, Corine. And just to refresh, so Corine is going to be talking about research for management of the locally empowered area protection project. And Corine is a technical and advocacy manager at Nature Seychelles. And she is currently running the locally empowered area protection project, which is working towards setting up the first co-managed marine area in Seychelles. Welcome, Corine, and thank you very much. I'll hand over to you now.
All right, thank you, Kelly. So I'm here with Nature Seychelles. I'm sure you might have heard about this NGO before. So Nature Seychelles has been around for quite a while and has been involved in an extensive management of environmental conservation and management of protected areas, more so scientific. But this project that we've embarked on now is slightly more in relation to the community and to what communities have to say about their protected areas. So therefore it's more inclusive. So essentially, just a little background about the project and the current management status in the country. Most of the protected areas, in fact all, are predominantly set up and commonly managed by either government or NGOs and possibly some private users. And as we've seen in previous presentations, we've seen how Seychelles is now committed to expand this protected area up to 30% of its EEZ. And therefore, this project fits right in here to try and find new ways, new innovative ways to improve the effectiveness of governance of these protected areas, as there are more areas to cover now. So the acronym says it all, locally empowered area protection. So it's all about having the inputs of the local community in a more formalized way in the management of their marine protected areas, to set up what we like to call what has been coined a co-managed marine area. Now, this is a regional project being run in Mozambique and Madagascar and Kenya, but this is the first for Seychelles. So we've never really had a protected area that has been designated or been assigned that there is some form of shared governance. So it's not just one legally mandated body managing that area, but another involved in deciding what happens, how the area is being managed, and the use of the area as well. So like I've said, it's a regional project and it's being implemented with the help of IUCN, funding from the International Climate Initiative from the government of Germany. And we have a few political partners locally which are assisting us to implement the project. So that is the Ministry of Agriculture, Climate Change and Environment, and the Department of Blue Economy. So the project itself is centered around the process of co-management, so a shared form of governance. So like I said, more than one party being involved in the decision-making that's taking place. And it's called a process because, especially in Seychelles, since it hasn't happened in this way, such a formalized way prior, we need to go through certain steps. And dealing with communities, we need to essentially first identify who the user groups or the stakeholders are of these marine national parks or protected areas, and then facilitate a dialogue between them as a sort of body and the locally designated body. In Seychelles, it's the Seychelles National Parks Authority. And then through assessments and reviews of the governance of the ecosystem, and especially because the community is involved, it's also important to have a delve into the livelihoods of the area and how the locals can also benefit from the management of the area and build more resilient livelihoods from the marine protected areas. So these assessments will really guide the decision-making into the way the management plan or the project plan will go, who will be involved, what activities will take place, etc. So once this is all done, I'll talk about these assessments in a minute, then the partners will then agree to the activities, the functions, and who's responsible for what, etc. So the assessments, what we call research for management, I think is what drives this. Along with the community's input, research it will be undertaken, has already begun in some respects in the conservation of the area. So we have a few baseline assessments to undertake, which will help us to be able to measure the outcomes of the project, to see how, in comparison to when we started, how far we've come. And the project itself wishes to essentially have an improvement in conservation actions of 30%, so coral cover, fish stock, also livelihood diversity, and of course through both of these and through shared governance, through co-management, create more resilient ecosystems. So the site that was selected by our project's technical committee and approved by government, by cabinet, is in the district of Poglo. So we have two MPAs that are quite renowned. So the Bay 10A and the Bay 10A Marine Park and the Polone Marine Park. And for the purposes of assessment, the area to be assessed is going to span slightly larger than this, because we're considering the livelihood of the area now. Of course, there are different activities that take place outside just these designated marine parks. So assessment will help us have an understanding of the marine biodiversity and, again, the use of the area. Also, some of these places haven't, there is a gap in the data. So it will be good as a sort of knowledge sharing for future projects to have this information for us. Okay, so first assessment we've kickstarted with is the marine biodiversity assessment, a scientific one. Okay, so it would look at all the marine life organisms up to the high water mark, and also we've included some of the wetlands of Captain Suyak and the Ramsar side of Polone as well. Also, this consultant would be also talking to the local community about their understanding of what biodiversity really is, its importance, and how they act, or their activities and actions have an impact on the marine biodiversity. And of course, we'll be able to have a representation of all this from the consultancy. A very important one, which in the beginning, when the project was drawn up, was not in the plan really, was this stakeholder perspectives assessment. One reason why it wasn't there is because the other countries involved, Mozambique, Madagascar, they already have fishing communities that are, all their people who live there are directly related, their livelihoods are directly related to the marine national parks. But in Seychelles, we don't have these communities that it really exist. In the district that we're working in right now, we are not certain of the percentage of people who are directly or indirectly beneficiaries of the marine national parks there. So the stakeholder mapping exercise would really give us an indication of this and let us know whether the people who are actually living in the vicinity of the marine national parks are direct beneficiaries, or whether it could be, and which we quite suspect, people from other districts. So we would have to then redefine and say who the community is that benefit from the marine national parks in Seychelles, as opposed to the other projects running concurrently in the other countries. Also, because we're linking to livelihoods of improving livelihood diversity, we need to also think about what the natural environment, its economic value actually is. So data will then be collected to have an understanding of the way in which the goods and services can be are being used, and their value, of course. And of course, it will help us to understand how we can develop more livelihood options for the locals, which feeds very well into the next assessment, the livelihood and vulnerability assessment, which I believe has been undertaken by the Bureau of Statistics on a national scale. But for the District of Pobla, we would like to do this more specifically, talking to at least 10% of our population to understand who the vulnerable communities are. Again, all in relation to the marine national parks, understanding if they gain their livelihoods from the marine national parks, if yes, how, if not, and they were, what threats or what challenges that they experienced in this. And from all of these, we would be developing a sort of a capacity needs. So it would help us to understand the needs of the community so we can build capacity and enable us to devise some sustainable business mechanisms or programs, or for example, workshops that we could offer through the project to the local people. It's my last slide. So just overall, where we are right now in the project, we have set up our local community committee in the district, the site level management committee, and we've had some initial discussions with them. And we've had some site visits to look at the protected area, the marine protected area. We've had some beach cleaning activities with the local community with some students, and we've worked alongside SNPA and Hunt Delta for that. And from activities as such, the local people were able to engage with the other stakeholders on our committee who are also present to let them know a little bit about what they think about the marine park, how they find it is being managed, and how maybe they would wish it could be more effectively managed, which is the overall objective of the project. By including local people and adopting more locally relevant governance frameworks. It will not make, we're not saying that it's going to be perfect, it's going to be better, but we're going to improve the effectiveness of the current management of these areas. And that's through this shared governance. And how we're going to do this, like I've said already, we are thinking of ahead about probably investing in infrastructure, definitely conservation and activities, training, like we've said, that will be linked to the livelihood assessments, and public awareness programs are important in terms of the use of the area and how the current use of the area could be improved as well. And that's a wrap for me. If you'd like any more information, you can drop us an email at Nature Seychelles. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much, Corinne. And it's really good to see more projects looking at empowering communities and engaging communities to support effective, I suppose, adaptive management and effective policy. So they seem to have a couple of questions here. I think somebody raised the point about that there has been some work done around aphilia. And I'm just wondering, how that will be implemented maybe in the project, or if there's any implementation.
Okay, yes, so
just in terms of also, I see that somebody's mentioned GVI is there also. So just wondering how you'll engage and build on things that have already developed in that area.
All right, thanks for the question, everyone. As part of our stakeholder assessment, our initial one here, we identified all those parties that you've mentioned in the questions, for example, Aphilia and GVI, which we have been working very closely with for that matter. On our site level committee, on the local level, we have a representative of Aphilia who has worked extensively with the Ramsar site. And we are communicating with them for some upcoming events that we'd like towards the end of the year. GVI, yes, we know and love them. We are working very closely with them, like I've said, and they will be assisting in the surveying of the biodiversity in the area. Of course, this project looks to incorporate everybody who is there and who can lend a helping hand. It's not about creating a whole new project on its own in isolation. It's about bringing everybody together. So for the past couple of months, we've been looking at the issues that all these organizations have been facing in our meetings, so that we can then think about how we can move forward together. Of course, like we've said, it's shared. It's a co-management structure.
Great.
The other
Thanks. And then there's just two more questions. One, the livelihood and vulnerability assessment is important for local adaptation strategies. Are you aware of the methods that will be applied to the study? Because the UNDP Human Development Index has been used.
Yes, we have. Sorry, yeah, we've looked at the different methods that we would like to use for the study, but we would also like to have input from experienced consultants who have experience working similarly in other areas in the district, and probably also on a national level, to incorporate all of these as well.
Great. And then the last one, regarding the marine biodiversity assessment, would the vulnerability or threatened species be based on IUCN classifications or local perceptions?
Both. So it's twofold. We'd like to know what the local community understand, and of course, at the end of the assessment, all of the consultants have an element where there is some sharing of information, where of course, local community will have a chance to have an understanding of which species are vulnerable, threatened, etc., as per the IUCN classifications.
Great, thanks.
Yes, yeah. Daniel, I believe we have had some conversation, and I will be contacting actually both of you, Kelly and Daniel, about this. I was also interested in the course you have on tourism, which is not with Berry, but with UNICEF, but it's all these things are in the works.
Great, thanks. Just for everybody, there's a marine science and sustainability master's student who has a project on this. So just talking about picking up. Yeah, all right, so great. It's really good to hear this. Thanks very much, Corinne, and we look forward to chatting to you.